Today, I'm tackling one of the toughest parts of Ironman training, the mental game. Physical training is just half the battle. Pushing through the moments when everything feels impossible takes a different kind of strength. Whether it's getting through a grueling workout or staying focused when fatigue sets in. Today, I'm sharing the mental strategies that kept me going personally as I push towards my Ironman goals in this past training season. So let's dive into the mindset it takes to conquer the toughest race on earth. So the first of the powerful mental strategies that I want to talk about today are visualizing success. What I like to do here is spend a few minutes each day, or usually in my actual workouts, visualizing my own success when race day comes. And, oftentimes since I work out without headphones on or without music on, it's pretty tough to find the right subjects to allow your mind to dig into on, say, like a 2-hour long run or a 3-hour long ride, a 4-hour long ride. And if you don't come into those workouts prepared with something to think about, oftentimes you can sabotage, one, your own performance, but two, your overall mood around your training. Now, the overall mood around your training is extremely important because not only does it affect that specific workout that you're in, but it also affects the general or overall recovery that your body's going to feel as you move forward through your training cycle. And, this happened to me personally several times where I was allowing myself to get into a more negative state of mind, and that was manifesting in my recovery and then my approach to the following workouts, which then perpetuated that cycle downward. You don't want to find yourself in one of those traps, and using this strategy, visualization of success, is going to be one of the key skills that you'll develop to increase your mental strength and to improve your general feeling towards your training. Now, the second of the 3 strategies that I wanted to talk about is breaking down the goal. Now, this doesn't quite strengthen your mind, but what it does is it chops your goal up into more manageable bits so that it doesn't feel quite as overwhelming as, obviously, like the hardest race in the world. Taking on an Ironman is like taking on the marathon of each of the 3 disciplines in the same day. And for some people, just taking on a marathon is unfathomable already. So, if you're not mentally preparing yourself as you're going through your training, you might be missing one of the key pieces of Ironman training, and that's that mental strength, or at least it's the mental work to minimize the grandness of the overall feat. Until you've done your first Ironman, it could be very easy to feel overwhelmed just at the thought of taking on the race. And even until midway through my second season of training, the thought of the Ironman just didn't sit well with me. Even though I completed it my first time, the second time that I went to do it, I was still managing to, at times, tell myself that I got lucky by finishing the first time. So, this race wasn't completely in the bag for me. And it could have been true, but the point is that that's not the right mindset that you want to be taking on your training. The root of that mindset is really the feeling that something is just too big for you to comprehend. Even in your training for your first Ironman, you'll never at any point do a full Ironman. So the first time you'll ever do a full Ironman is actually on race day. And that's different from like a lot of sports. A marathon, yeah, it's similar, but it's not quite as big of an ask, because for you to not do a marathon before your marathon is mentally tough, of course, but it's not like doing that 3 times. It's really something. It's really something. And the better you can break down your goal, or break down the leg of the race that you're in, the better. Now, just another quick example of this. During this past Ironman, excuse me. During this past Ironman, for me to actually complete my goal as it was, I had to break each mile of the marathon down as if it was the only mile that I was running. So my goal in this past Ironman was to run the whole marathon, and I accomplished that goal. But the way I accomplished it was within every single mile, or within every single aid station, all I told myself was that I had to just get to the next aid station, and then just get to the next aid station. And by breaking it up aid station by aid station, before I knew it, I was at the end of the race and had the medal around my neck without having stopped. Now, if I was in my head thinking like, oh my god, I have 25 miles to go, oh my god, I have 24 miles to go, 20 miles to go, then odds are that thought would have been too much, and it would have been much easier for me to say, well, like, if I just walk for half a mile, it's not going to kill me because I have 20 miles to go. It's crazy. How am I going to keep running for another 20 miles? But because I broke it up into smaller bits, my mind was able to digest that distance easier, and I was able to continue on the way that I wanted to. Now, the third strategy for improving your mentality or your mental strength is positive self-talk. Now, this sounds woo-woo to a lot of people, and a lot of people actually make it sound crazier than it is, but really the difference here from what I'm going to share and what a lot of people share is, yeah, it's hard to always be positive, and it's not even correct to be overly positive when you're approaching a race like this. Like, you can't go into it and say, like, without having put in the work beforehand, I'm gonna somehow magically things are gonna line up and I'm gonna do a sub 10 hour effort today, even though like all your data up until this point points you at like around a 14 hour. Now, that's not the positive self-talk that I'm talking about, but what I am talking about is not going negative. So a lot of people, myself included, once you start to feel pain and discomfort and aches and all this other stuff, especially when you're running, like your feet hurt, your knees hurt, your joints hurt, the first thing that your mind does is it goes negative. It says, oh, like this pain in my ankle, like I'm probably injuring myself, I'm probably hurting myself. If I keep going, I'm going to do permanent damage. And just that line of thinking is going to make it so that you're not going to be able to perform where you want to perform. So when I'm talking about positive self-talk, rather than allowing your mind to grab onto a negative thought or feeling, make a conscious effort to pull yourself back to either neutral or positive. And, that is going to be the make or break for you when you're doing your Ironman, because especially on your first one, you're going to be in a lot of pain. It's going to be tough, It's probably going to be the hardest thing that you've ever done up until this point in your life, and that's okay, and it's meant to be. So rather than saying, like, oh, I'm in pain on a loop in your head, or I'm not ready, or I'm not going to make it, it's much better to just say, hey, like, we're out here, I'm not going to stop, be objective, I trained for this, I put in this work, and lean on the stuff that you've done to get yourself to that point, to really allow yourself to go positive or go neutral and pull yourself out of the negative. And that is gonna be that's gonna make your race. So just any of these three things, if you work on these, like leading into your race, I try to make it a practice of bringing these thoughts into all of my training. But use these three strategies as you're preparing for your race, and trust me, like, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna cross that finish line. You're gonna hear the magical words at the end. You are an Ironman, and you know what? It's all gonna be worth it. So don't stress so much. Just put in the work, put in the physical work, put in the mental work, and yeah, go get some.